Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how I made this hooded mini capelet thing for my Astrid costume. The pattern I adapted comes from the website fleecefun.com. Fantastic website with lots of patterns and things you can make. This is the Red Riding Hood pattern. It is a free pattern, so make sure you go and check that out. Also, they have all the instructions for actually sewing it, so I'm not going to go into that on this video. I'm just going to show you the things I did differently from the instructions that you find over there at www.fleecefun.com. All right, check them out and then come back here and let's do this. I started cutting out the pattern along the lines for the capelet size. Now obviously the front section is going to need to be quite a bit smaller than that, so with the help of my friendly mannequin I drew some lines on the pattern that I hoped would be about the right size. I did some pretty big alterations to the back as well. Here you can see the basic shape I started with, but by the end I had trimmed that down even further. And now we're back to the front, cutting most of the pattern away really. Alright, that's starting to get a little closer. Next step was to take an old shower curtain and sew it up to see what it looked like. And I made some changes on the front because I don't want it to overlap in the center. I want a little gap there for a ring and of course some dead bird skulls. Okay, for the hood I ended up cutting away a strip about 35 millimeters wide on both the fur and the material that's supposed to look kind of like leather, and that's from the front opening of the hood. The reason I did this is because I want a strip of fur to wrap around from the inside of the hood to the outside of the hood. So I'm going to take this piece of fur, fold it in half to replace the two strips I just cut away. So that goes inside, still folded in half between the fur and the brown fabric, and gets sewn in at the same time as you're sewing the front seam around the hood. To be totally honest, I don't remember exactly how I did it because it was a while ago, but it ended up looking like this, which I was happy with. Once the hood was figured out, my job was to sew the two halves of the capelet together, then tuck the hood inside the inside-out capelet and sew along that neck seam. That left me with a good old-fashioned hood in an inside-out capelet bag, which wanted to be a hood in a right-side-out capelet knot bag. The only way to free the hood was to pick open one of the seams, so that's what I did. Then I could turn it right side out to reveal it in all its capelety goodness. There were lots of places where the fur got caught in the seams, but with a little help from a small screwdriver, that was easily fixed. I grabbed a ring from my bag of random rings and things and tried to open it up with my superhuman strength, which failed me, so I used a fancy tool called pliers. I just need a little gap there so my clasp system will work. Cut a couple strips from an old leather jacket, made those strips into loops, and sewed them on to the front edge of the capelet. Now the ring can be used as a simple clasp to close the capelet. Just slide the leather loop through the gap in the ring on each side. It's not the easiest to do up, but it is simple to make and it won't come undone accidentally when you're fighting a dragon. Okay, so next I made the pauldrons. I have a whole video dedicated to that and a pattern as well, so I won't go into it here, but make sure you check it out. With the pauldrons done, I poured out my big bag of buttons. I was looking for a couple that have their holes through a little knobby thing on the back. I took those buttons and glued them on the inside of the pauldrons at the pivot points. I grabbed a nice thick needle and thread, placed the pauldrons where I wanted them on the capelet, stuck the needle up from the inside, put it through the hole in the button, and back down where it came from. Not in the exact same hole, of course, otherwise it'll just pull out. I tied a few knots to make sure it stayed in place, and repeated the process for the other buttons. I should note that I did find it helpful to connect the lining and the fur with a couple stitches right at the shoulder. Okay, this is looking pretty great except for one problem. It's not really wearable with the hood down. The weight of the hood pulls the whole thing back and tries to choke you with the metal ring. I kind of thought that might happen, but I was hoping it wouldn't. So I came up with the brilliant idea of adding some counterweights. I took the original front shoulder pattern piece and made myself a pattern of a piece that would fit inside the original one. I guess I wasn't totally happy with it because then I took that one and made it a little bigger. I don't really remember why, but we'll just say that was a good idea. I cut 4 of these pieces out of some thin waterproof fabric and sewed them together in sets of 2 to make little pouches. I left the flat edge open so I could fill up my little pouch with some sand. I don't want it too full, otherwise it'll be bulky and really hard, and it'll be hard to sew the end shut, which I am doing right now. I just had to keep the sand away from the seam as much as possible because I didn't want to make my sewing machine mad at me. Okay, so now I need to weasel that little sandbag in so it sits right at the front of the shoulder there. Luckily I haven't sewn the seam shut that I unpicked at cut the bottom of the cape yet, so I can go from there and work it up all the way through the back of the cape into the shoulder. Once I had it how I liked it, I just sewed one thread through the shoulder and the sandbag to hold it all together so the sandbag wouldn't move around. Punched a couple holes that went through the leather loops as well as the front of the capelet, and used the same technique to attach a couple bird skulls as I used on the skirt tutorial. Now all that was left to do is sew shut the bottom seam of the cape that I opened up earlier, and I did that by hand so I wouldn't interfere with how the fur looks on the outside. And then I was done. I think it turned out really great, and I think you could use it for more than just Astrid. Imagine this over top of full knight armor with a bigger sized cape going down the back. That'd be pretty epic. Thanks for watching. See ya.